Well, the U.S. government is loosening some of the restrictions it put on Chinese telecom giant Huawei. Last week, the U.S. government added Huawei to a blacklist, effectively blocking the company from buying U.S. goods. Now, Huawei has been issued a temporary general license to help it maintain relationships with existing customers. Reuters correspondent Angela Moon joins me now to talk a little bit more about this. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So, my husband has a Huawei phone.
Really?
Yeah. Anyway, so we're always sort of like, this has become a hot topic in our house. There's been a lot of back and forth, though. You know, first Huawei's on this blacklist, now there's sort of an exception. So just kind of bring us along the timeline. What's going on?
Right. So a lot of moving parts obviously happening to this story. Yeah. The latest is that the Commerce Department has eased sort of restrictions on the kind of business that U.S. companies can do with Huawei. So in terms of Google, now what they're able to do is they can still provide security patches and updates to its Android operating system, but this is only to existing Huawei device users. So nothing changes in terms that going forward, Google will still suspend its plans to do any kind of business, meaning it won't be able to provide Android OS or sort of updates to its Google Play Store, Gmail apps, all that, right, to future phones that will be available to customers of Huawei devices.
So if you're somebody like my husband who has a Huawei phone, he's not going to see any difference, safe. But it's the existing phones. So this is going to make it obviously tougher for Huawei to sell these phones, right, because what's going to be on them now?
Exactly. So this is going to be a hard hit in markets like Europe, where having access to Google mobile services are a critical component if you want to be a competitive player in the market. Right. Now, for the Chinese market, which Huawei has about 50% of market share, it's not much difference because Google mobile services are blocked anyway. But like you said, it's other parts of the world that customers really need these kind of services to function their phones.
So speaking of the relationship between Huawei and Google, I mean, did Google make this move sort of begrudgingly, or what do we know about their relationship? So
from what I heard from my source is that Google is not really planning anything. They're just going with what the federal government is telling them to do. So when the federal government put Huawei on the blacklist, what they had to do was to suspend all business ties with Huawei. Now, when the Commerce Department eased tensions on the restrictions yesterday, that means they are able to do business as they've been doing, at least for the next 90 days for existing phone users.
So how does all of this fold into the U.S.-China trade war?
Well, there's been a lot of sort of, tug of war back and forth going on. The U.S. raises tariff, now China retaliates. I mean, we'll have to see how this all folds out, but this was definitely a big hit for Huawei because Android operating system is the most popular operating system used by more than 80% of smartphone manufacturers. So Google taking that step was sort of the beginning of this whole thing. And after not Google's announcement, I would have to say on the record, Google has not confirmed or denied. It's really all based on what sources are saying. Okay. But a lot of chip makers have followed Google's footsteps, saying that they are going to suspend or at least stop temporarily what they're doing, the business that they're doing with Huawei.
So, okay, so obviously this is going to hurt Huawei in terms of its mobile phones, right? Because people can just buy other phones now that have all the Google stuff and Google Play. But this is a massive company, and cell phones is just sort of one aspect of it. I think the founder of Huawei sort of made a statement basically saying, hey, you know what, the U.S. government has kind of underestimated us. When it comes to 5G, we are so far ahead of the pack that, this is barely even going to hurt us. No one's really going to be able to catch up with us in terms of that technology. Does he have a point?
Yes, so he spoke with the state CCTV, and he said exactly what you said, that the U.S. is underestimating sort of the power of Huawei, especially when it comes to the kind of impact or influence it has in the 5G world. Yeah. He also did mention that the ease of restrictions will not impact Huawei in any way because they have a contingency plan. They've been ready to do this. They've been stockpiling chips. So, in a way, he's coming out and saying, hey, U.S., you can do whatever you want, but we're not going to be impacted or impacted as much as you want us to be impacted.
Whoa. All right. Thank you very much, Angela.
Thank you for having me.